It's a term which says that all of our code lives in a single repository. As we can see, on the left side, which is the application one, it has the material theme, whereas the other one doesn't. And we need to create now this one on the right side and reuse the same library. In order to do this, in order to achieve that, we have to separate that library. We need to think the Verdaccio that this is a proxy that sits between the application and the NPM. So, hello again. So let me introduce myself. So my name is Fanis Prodromou. You can find me in social media as Fanis. I'm a Google developer expert for Angular. I'm a senior Angular developer and I work in the company ASI. And I am also author of the book Mastering Angular Reactive Forms. And if you want to connect with me in the social media, you can find me in Mastodon. I'm not active there. I had to create the account because everyone was creating an account. I was like, okay, I will create an account to Mastodon as well. But anyways, Prodromou have my Twitter and also my blog.profanis.me. I'm not that active in my blog as well, and I'm going to explain why. And you can also find a recent article that I wrote in Angular Love about state management and NGXS, and my LinkedIn, which is Prodromou F. If you're going to buy my book, this is how it looks like, Mastering Angular Reactive Forms, and you can find it in Amazon. And the reason that I'm not that active in my blog is that I spend most of my time in creating videos. So here it says that it's something like 2.7 subscribers, 2.7K subscribers. It's an old screenshot. Now it's something like 4.3, something like that. And I have a lot of free content there, and I highly encourage you to go there, click subscribe and the ring bell. And let's see. So today's topic is about libraries. A library in a Mono-repo and in a Poly-repo. And this is the agenda that we are going to follow. The agenda is like, what is a library? And we will start with the theory. I know that you don't like that much all of the theory, so I'm not going to spend that much time there. And then we will start with a live coding. So, you know, live coding, in most of the cases, we'll have some issues, technical issues. We're all technicals, and we will see how to solve them. And we will do the following, that we're going to create a library, and we will try to create to use this library in a Mono-repo and in a Poly-repo. So what is a library? So let's start by saying the following, like, if you ask a librarian, they will start saying about how they organize the books. And they organize the books per context, author, topic, and many more options. And similarly, as developers, we like to organize our code per context. Some context could be data and UI. If we follow the mental model of Norwell and X, I think it's 80-20, this kind of ratio, which means that from our product, 80% of the code lives in the libraries, whereas the 20% of the code is the application itself. This means that the application ending up being like just a container, and all of the other code lives in the libraries. And the libraries in general helps us a lot, having also a separation of concerns. So let's see this screen and think the following. We have a designer, and the designer gives us this one, which has on top just a menu item with home, product, users, and then we have the navigation, the avatar icon, and we have a list. Can we think a bit what kind of libraries can we create for this one? One could say, yes, of course we can create a data library. Yes, this would be very correct. On the other side, we won't create a data library for this talk, we will create a UI library. And specifically, we're going to create a UI library based on material, and we will create a product card. So here we have a list of 4, let's say, products, 4 things, and we're going to reuse them. The steps that we're going to follow is to create an Angular workspace, just the workspace, and then we will create a library, and last but not least, we will create the application. And this is how it should look like. We're going to have the workspace, and inside the workspace, we will have the library and the application. The command to create the workspace is, like we see here, npm init angular. What's the name of the workspace? I named it Profanis app, and then we will provide the option no create application. And then we have to create in this workspace, we have to create the library. And what is the command for the library? Ng-generate library. What is the name? Profanis lib. And okay, now it's the time to create the application. Are we going to go in a mono-repo or in a poly-repo? We will start with a mono-repo. And a few words about the mono-repo. It's a term which says that all of our code lives in a single repository, in only one repository, one GitLab, one GitHub, you name it. Which means that in the same repository I can have more than one applications and more than one libraries. One of the benefits of using a mono-repo is that you don't have to deal with the dependencies. Every application has the same dependencies. And since we're going to use a mono-repo, the command is the following: ng-generate application. What is the name of the application? Profanis lib app. So let's now start with the live coding. And let's hope for the better, not to have any surprises into the live coding. So let's start with the following. In the beginning, we said that we need first to create a workspace. And the workspace will be npm init Angular, and I want to provide the name, and the name will be Profanis app, and then I have to provide also this option, no create application. I think this is correct, and let's give it a try. Yes, proceed with this one. Let's wait a bit to install all the packages. Ideally, if this would be a video, we would have here something like elevator music, but it's not a video, so we don't have this kind of music. Okay, so since we have this, let's go inside this Profanis app, and from now on we will start using our VS Code. So let me close this a bit, and let's focus here. As you can see, we just created a workspace, no application, no library. And if I open the Angular.json, all that we can see is that we have only few things in terms of configuration, and the project is empty. So let's now create our library. So let me have it like that. And the command is ng-generate. What are you going to generate? A library. And the name is going to be Profanis lib. Immediately, as you can see here, we have the project type. What kind of type is this? This is a library, and then we have a bunch of options. So let me close this a bit. And a very good observation is what happened with this command. Apart from the files that have been created, we also have an update into the Angular.json, into the package.json, and in tsconfig.json. So let's go there and see what happened. At the time that we created our library, automatically created these paths, and we have this path alias, which points directly to this directory. This means that in order to use the library, we have first to build our library in order to have under this directory. So this is the very first command, and then let's create the application. ng-generate application, and I will name it Profanis lib app. Routing, I don't need routing. SCSS, just personal preference. And let's again go into the Angular.json, and as you can see now we have here the Profanis lib app, and this is a type of application instead of a library. And you know what, let's create one more, Profanis lib app 2. Not a fancy name, but it will do, it will work for now. And again, we have the Profanis lib app 2, which is a type of application. Nice. So if we focus now here into the projects, we can see that we have the Profanis lib, we have the Profanis lib app, and the Profanis lib app 2. And what is the goal? The goal is to use the library, and think now that we are in a mono-repo. We need now to use this library into the app or app 2. So let's give it a try. And if you remember, here into the tsconfig.json, we have this path alias, Profanis lib, and this is what we're going to follow. But to make this work, we have first to build the library. So ng-build, what are you going to build? The Profanis lib, and I will also provide the watch option so that the file watcher, a tip for the talks, mute your phone. So let me mute it. So now I provided the option watch so that the file watcher will recompile my library whenever I have any change. So let's now open the Profanis lib and see what we have. The only thing, this is the default ones. I have just a module and then I have this component. And the component, it only has this lib Profanis lib, which is my selector, and the inline template. No more than that. Okay, so let's now go and try to use this. And I will go into the Profanis lib app, src app module, and I will go into the imports, and I want to import my Profanis lib module. Again, Profanis lib module, and as you can see, I'm using the alias. Okay, so I have this, and now let's go into the app component HTML. I will delete everything, and just to have a distinction between the applications, because we have two applications, I will have here just an app header, and I will use just my selector, lib Profanis lib. And now let's do the exact same thing into the other application. Profanis lib app2, and again src app module, and into the imports I will go and be like, I want to have my Profanis lib module, and again into the app component HTML I will delete everything, and I will use this selector, lib Profanis lib. This should work for now. So here we have the terminal which has the watcher, and let me create two more terminals here. And on the left side, I will have the application 1, and on the right side, I will have the application 2. So I want to have ngserve, and I have to provide here the project, should be Profanis lib app, and I want this to be into the port, this is the default one, and let's do the same here, ngserve, which project, the Profanis lib app2, and again, I want to provide a port, and this is going to be 4001. While waiting for this, let's now open two browsers, one on the left and one on the right. And again, on the left we will have the application 1, and on the right we will have the application 2. So this is it. And I forgot to have here app2. Let me do this just for my OCDs. So here I need to have this, and this is going to be my app2. Okay. So now what we have is that app2. Okay. You got the point. So what we managed to do now is that we have the library, and it's being used by two different applications. And this is the very first goal. But in the beginning, we said that we need also to have here Angular material. So let's do this as a next step. So let me kill everything from here, kill this as well, and let me close everything as well from my tabs. And the goal is to have into the library the Angular material. And since we need this, of course, we need also to install the packages. So let me install the Angular material and the Angular CDK. While waiting for the installation, let's go now into the Profanis lib, and we'll have to do some changes into the Profanis lib component. And the changes is going to be, you know what, I don't remember it from heart, that's why I have all of this code here. So what this is doing is that I have just the same selector, lib Profanis lib, and then I'm using the material card. This is no more like a copy-paste from the official documentation from material, and I provided just an interpolation for the title. For the subtitle, I have just a currency and a content projection. No more than that. It's more or less copy-paste. And of course, since we have now this kind of errors, this means that we have to go here and import my smart card module. So let's do this. I'm going to have my smart card module, and also I need to have my currency pipe. And speaking of standalones, this is one benefit. Now I have to directly import the currency pipe as a standalone. And now if we go here, we do not see any problem, any errors. So let's now give it a try. So let me scroll down a bit to see what we have. We have the styles. And then this kind of component exposes also to inputs. This is the API of this component. And I have to provide the title and the subtitle. And you know what? Let me build now this library again. ngBuild with a watcher. And let's switch now and go to the application. I will go to the Fanis lib app, into the app component HTML, and I have now to use this component. And again, code fragments, and I have to use, not this one, this one. So what I'm doing is that I'm using the lib Fanis lib, and I'm providing a title and a subtitle, and I know that you already hate me because I have here inline style. This is just for the presentation. And I will do the same thing, you know what, let me have here app one, into the other application. So let's go into the app2 source app component HTML and paste it here as well. And now let's rerun to see what we have managed to do. Okay, compile successfully both of them, and if I reload, as you can see now, what we have into the browsers, we have the card, which is based on Material, but we do not have any theme. But how come? We just installed Material, but then we installed Material, but we didn't reference the Material into the application. So let's do this as well. So let's go and perhaps here, I want to add 2 points here. We have 2 options actually how to reference the material, manually or by using the ng-add schematic. I would prefer to go with ng-add schematic. So I will add here my Angular /material, and I have also to provide a project. And I want this to be referenced into the Fanis lib app. And let's see. We have to pick a theme. Let's go with a default one. Yes, I need to have the typography, include enable animations. Let's wait a bit and let's see if everything are okay here. It seems that everything are okay. And if I reload, okay, so let's kill them and rerun them. Okay, compile successfully both of them. And now, as we can see, on the left side, which is the application one, it has the material theme, whereas the other one doesn't, which is okay because this is what we did. So at that point, we managed to create a library and use that library into the same repo, in the same repository, which is fairly easy. And if you can think of how easy it is, it's like that we have an application and we have another application, and it's more or less on the same level. And then I have to go up one step and just use the same library. Something like that. But how about if we want to do the same thing in a Poly-repo? How can we achieve that? And when we say Poly-repo, we mean that we have 2 different repositories. GitHub A, GitHub B, GitLab, Azure, whatever, 2 different things. And how about if we want to use the exact same library exposed to them? Currently, we have this kind of setup. On the left side, we have the projects and we have one repository, and that repository has the library. And we need to create now this one on the right side and reuse the same library. In order to do this, in order to achieve that, we have to separate that library. And when I mean separate it, I do not mean to separate the source code itself, but the artifact, the buildable artifact, to separate it. And we have some options to do this. Some options in terms of tools. We can do this either by using Artifactory, either using Nexus, either using Verdaccio, or, of course, we can use NPM. And for this talk, we will go with Verdaccio. We will see how to install Verdaccio, how to publish to Verdaccio, and how to reuse it in multiple applications. In order to understand how to achieve this, let's first see how things work. Let's say that we have an Angular application. And before I start explaining all of this flow, we need to think the Verdaccio that this is a proxy that sits between the application and the NPM. And it sits between these two. And now let's say that we have an Angular application, and this Angular application has an NPM package. we execute our command, and the command is npm install something. And then this command goes to the proxy, and the proxy does this question. Does this command belong to my side or belongs to npm? It belongs to npm, so go there, resolve it, and return it back. And how about now if we have a private package? Again, the flow goes like this. We'll go to the proxy, which is our Verdaccio, and the Verdaccio does the same thing, the same question. Does this package belongs to my database, or does this belong, for example, to an npm? It belongs to my database, so I will resolve it from my own file system or whatever. And now we have the question, how can we use a proxy? To learn how to use a proxy, we first have to learn what is a registry. So a registry is just a repository for packages that implement this specification, CommonJS package registry specification. This is the specification that has been implemented by npm, and this is the specification that has also implemented by Verdaccio. If you run this command into your terminal, npm config with a grep, for example, registry, you will see here that you have this variable, registry. And then it has https registry.npmjs.org, which is the URL of the npm itself. But the good thing with this is that the registry itself is just a variable. So since this is a variable, we can change the variable. And we have some options. One option is to use environment variables, or to use terminal variables, or to use the file .npmrc, which is the configuration for the npm. And this is what we're going to do. This is the file that we're going to use. And now we will switch to the Poly-repo and to see how things work. Again, into a live code. And the steps that we will follow are the following. First, install Verdaccio, and then deploy a library, and then use the library. A note here about Verdaccio, and the reason that I use Verdaccio is that it's open source, it's free, and easy to use. So let's now switch again. Let me close everything. Close this as well. Close this, kill this, and open just the terminal. So the command is, let me zoom in a bit, npm install Verdaccio with a global flag. I'm not going to execute this now because I have already done this. And the next step, as soon as we install Verdaccio, is to run Verdaccio. The very first step that we see here is that we have this YAML file, which is a huge one, so let me show you. If I do here just a cut, it has many things, which is good and bad. The good thing is that it's configurable a lot and we can do many things. The other thing that we see here is that we have this kind of URL. So let's open the browser and go and see what we have just installed, 4873. So this is how the Verdaccio looks like at the very first time. So let me guide you a bit through what we're seeing. It's not that hard. So at the header, we can see that we have search packages, just the logo, and then here we have the small menu, and then it guides us how to publish our first library. And at first it says npm add user using the registry. This is very important. And then we have to publish and then just refresh the page. So let's follow these kind of rules. I will copy this and I will add just npm add user with this registry. And my username is going to be Fanis, I don't know, user A, whatever, and a very strict password, 12345, and this is going to be my email. So it seems that we are already logged in. And the next step, it says that you have now to publish. Okay, so let's go into our library that we have already created here, and let's do the following. I will build my library, ng-build the Fanis lib, and then let's go to this directory into the Fanis lib, and we have to publish it. If you do not remember the command to publish, it's easy to go here, npm publish, copy the registry, and just paste it here. And it seems that the very first version, the very first patch version of our library has been published. And now if we go to Verdaccio and refresh the page, we can see that we have it here, which it seems like having an NPM. And if we click here, we can see that we have the README file, which is this thing. And on the right side, we have a short description of the README, and then we have some options of how to install it. So this is the second step. And it seems that we have already managed to install the Verdaccio and deploy also a library. And how about now use the library? We have to create a consumer. So previously we created an application, and I'm going now to create another one. So let me go here, libtalk. And I'm going to just do an ng-new, and the name will be Profanis up2. No routing, just the CSS, personal preference, no more than that. So this application is going to be the consumer. And since we're talking about consumer, this is the guy that needs to have also the configuration for the npm, the .npmrc file. So let's give it some time. Okay, so let's now jump into this application and just have the code. And inside here, into the root, I will create a new file. And this is going to be my npm.rc file. And I will provide my registry equals my HTTP localhost into the port 4873. This means that from now on, this application, whenever executes any command for npm, it will go directly to the registry, to the Verdaccio registry. And how can we install now the library? By this command, npm install Profanis lib. So copy to clipboard, let's go back, and I will just paste it here. Now, what we expect to see is into the packagization to have this guy, Profanis lib, which says that this is the version that we have. And let me also show you the package log. I will scroll down a bit, just a random one. As you can see, this package has been resolved by https registry npm.js.org, which is the default registry for npm. However, if we search for Profanis lib, this has been resolved from localhost 4873, which is our local one. So since now we have the library here, we can start using it. If you remember in the previous setup, where we had the Mono-repo, we had into the tsconfig a path alias. You know what, let's do the same thing here as well. I will create a path alias, and the name will be Profanis lib, exact same like the Mono-repo. And this time we do not have the dist directory. This time we have to resolve the library from the node modules. So my path, here will be node modules / Profanis lib. So this means that from now on we can reference that alias to use the library. So let's do this. Into the source app module, I will go into the imports array and I will do the following. I want to import my Profanis lib module from this alias. Nice. So let's now go into the app component HTML and try to use this. Try to use the selector. And of course I have something ready here, which is this one. Lib Profanis lib, and then I'm providing just the title and the subtitle. So let's give it a try. What will happen if I do an ng serve? And yes. Yeah, we have a compilation error. And we have the compilation error, and the reason is that our library has a dependency on material, but this application has no dependency to material. So we have here two options. The first option is to directly go into this application and add Angular material. And the second option, which I think is a better approach, is to go to the library itself and define the peer dependencies. And the peer dependencies means that the consumer of this library, my peer, should have this kind of dependencies. Where is this? Here. So here we already have by default this kind of peer dependencies. and we need also to add here the Angular material and the CDK. So let me scroll down into the Mono-repo application, and I have to locate the Angular CDK and the Angular material, and I will copy both of them. And I will go here, and I will just paste them. Now, the options that we have to do is, we have first to build the application, and then we have to publish. And this is the reason that I increased the version, because we cannot publish the same version. So let me go 2 steps back, and I want to build this library. And then let's go to this Fanis lib, and then I have to publish. npm publish, in which registry? This one. So let's see. Nice. So now it seems that we have just published this version, the patch version 2. And if we go to Verdaccio, we can see it even here. This is 1, but if I reload, we expect now to see the number 2, which seems that it worked. And now let's install again the Fanis lib, but this time the latest version. We expect this time into the package.json to have the latest one. Let's see. Now we have a small delay, and the reason that we have a delay, if we see this terminal, it tries to resolve all of the packages from the npm. I think it's close enough. Okay, so now we have the second version. And let's now try to serve. Any guess what will happen? I think it's obvious now what will happen, because we already see that it resolved all the material dependencies. And the reason is that from npm version 7 onwards, what they have done is that if we have pre-dependencies and this kind of dependencies are not yet in my application, the npm will download it for us. So now, if we go into the localhost, into this port, we see that it seems to work just fine. But again, we do not see any theme here. And the reason is that, yeah, we installed the Angular material, but we didn't reference the theme of that Angular material into our application. So again, the same flow. How can we do this? Either manually or using the schematic. And I will prefer to go with the schematic. ng-add Angular/material. Yeah, this is the one. Let's pick, for example, pink, blue, gray. Yes, here, include animations. And let's now try to serve again. And now we expect everything to work as expected. And this is it. So we managed to create our library and publish it in a mono-repo and use it in a separate application. So what's happening in general with the libraries is that we try to create, despite if they have material or not, they do not have their own theme. It could be, we could have some styled components, but this is not always the case. Sometimes it's much preferable to have like a specific theme into your application. So having this, it seems that we managed to install Verdaccio, we deploy the library, and then we use the library into our consumer using the .npmrc. And the last things, and I will close with this one, the last things, and this is more for your side, it's how about auth protection? Because we discussed about the Verdaccio and why do we need in our company, in our organization to have Verdaccio, something like that. Perhaps we need to have an isolated library for specific users. And for that one, we need also to have an auth protection, and Verdaccio has some plugins that support this idea, and it's not that hard to do this. And how about the theming? Don't we need also to have a specific theme that looks like in our brand color? And last but not least, of course, how to deploy a remote server. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm working on a Rails developer, and in our project we use maybe the same the same behavior with Ruby gems. And gem in general it's npm package. How do you solve issue when you should have production and, for example, development?
Yeah, this is a very good one. So in Angular, what we use mainly the npm link. So you have the library, and then you link it, and which creates a sim link, and then you have to use it into your application. This is what you ask, right? Or for environments, you mean production and...
Yeah. So, for example, you have 002 version, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You created, but in production you should use 001.
Yeah.
So you, according to your dependency package JSON, you just switch between different versions, and in node modules you have different versions.
Yeah.
And so how we have, like in our project, when we update something, yeah, we have a new version, we push it on GitHub, and this version is related to the current development branch. But production branch uses the old
one.
And we need continuously to update package JSON. So you have the same case, the same issue, or you solve it some another way.
No, it's exactly the same issue. And actually, to be honest with you, I do not see like an issue here. And I think this is a right approach, meaning that you have the developer and you have the version 1. Despite if you have version 2 or version 3 into your Verdace or whatever, and you tested it out, are you happy? No. Then perhaps you have to do some changes. Are you happy now with this kind of changes? Yes. It's time to deploy it to the production server. And yeah, how to deploy it? Of course, increase the packaging and stuff like that, which is, this is the flow that we're following as well.
Okay. For example, if you have a big team and it works on the same library, and one developer increased version and set, for example, 003, and another one set 003, because he did not know about this version is already set. We have totally the same issue, you know, we have team, and at the same time we just decided do not use versions, and right now we just use GitHub hash.
Okay.
Because versions is not working. When you develop,
in this kind of cases, yeah, it will be...
When you develop it's really fast, you know, when a lot of commits happens and it's big library and it's used everywhere, you know, it grows, and in one period of time we just decide that we do not use version because it's not working. That's easy, but just use hash commit and it works.
Yeah, it works. At the same time, you know what, I mean, I'm thinking that either we have to change the way that we are approaching the versions, or we have to approach, to follow a different approach in terms of how we increase the versions and who is responsible to increase these kind of versions. So I would go even a step behind. So if, for example, a developer A increases to 3 and the developer B increases to 3 as well, of course he cannot deploy it. He will have some issues, definitely. And then you have to rebase, take the latest changes and redeploy. And I'm not sure in this case how the GitHub versions in terms of rebasing solves the problem. So perhaps it solves, yeah, it solves one part of the problem in terms of versioning, but the other problem remains. So I would go one step behind and just reiterate through the process, the complete process of who is responsible to do this thing. But it's exactly the same thing.
It should be like, yeah, one person.
Can you repeat the question before answering?
Yeah, of course. Correct. Yeah.
It should be someone to manage all this. Yeah.
Sorry?
It should be someone to manage all this.
Exactly, it should be someone to manage. So just to repeat again the question in case someone didn't answer. So the question was, how about if we have a big team and that big team wants to increase the version, and we have multiple developers that want to increase into the same version. For example, the latest one is the patch version 2, and then the developer A and the developer B at the same time wants to increase the version to 3. And how can we solve these kind of issues? So that was the question and the discussion that we had previously. Thanks for the question.
I also have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation, firstly.
Thank you.
You mentioned about peer dependencies. So what I understood is like a mechanism which somehow enforces some libraries that your library was dependent on to be installed the application
Mm-hmm.
where you use the library. So let's say I have other library which I own. I mean, I created this library, and I wanted this library, let's call it library B, to be somehow included in the build of library A, that, let's say, parent library. Is it somehow possible to make it included in the build of the library A?
So let me repeat the question and at the same time to understand what is the flow. So you're saying that you have library A and has the package whatever, and then you have library B which has a dependency to library A which has the package whatever, and then you want to use the library B into your application.
Exactly. With no need to, establish the pure dependency, which makes me like enforced to install the library B as well in the application, in the
this is possible because with the peer dependencies, the consumer of this one will all the dependencies will be automatically installed for you.
Okay.
So this is one good thing. The other thing with the peer dependency is that how about if your application has already another version? So then you have to resolve this kind of conflicts. So NPM will return will respond back that you have already this kind of version, and it's something like good luck, resolve it. So this is the problem. But yeah, this is manageable. Very good question.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So, if we use a proxy server, will that mess up with our, if different developers have different versions of the same software, will that mess up with the CEO search results or no?
I'm trying to understand the question. So you have the proxy, and we have a certain package into a certain version.
Yes, like different developers maybe will not update their JS or something else, and then will that mess up with the CEO numbers? Because like Angular or other JS programs, they're just like, if we go into the browser and we turn off the JS, then we are left with HTML code.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like oftentimes it's hard for SEO results to be effective because first the HTML protocols are traffic, but one of the ways to overcome that problem is like a proxy server rendering, or like a pre-rendering, or like a dynamic rendering, or something of this sort. So, if we have like a messy code in a proxy server, will that mess up with the CEO results?
Yeah, okay. No, I think that understands the question. So the question is, we need to have a friendly to the search engine's application, and we want our page to be SEO friendly in general, and whether having a proxy with a certain library, regardless of the versions, if this will affect it. In this case, it won't affect it. So one is not related to the other. So it's a completely different mechanism of how to have either an SSR, server-side rendering application, or a static one to make it SEO friendly. So this is one mechanism. And the other one is how to manage your own dependencies for your own organization. So it's they are two different things, and one won't affect the other. Yes, please.
I have a question that might sound like a basic one, but because we mentioned that there are two ways to pretty much compose your applications, and you can use a Poly-repo repository or you can use a Mono-repository. And if I understand correctly, those are two separate ways, right? You either use one or the other.
Yes.
In your opinion, because I've just started using an X as well in organizing my workflow, but what is a better way to, which of those two ways are better in order to, in situations where you need to think about the dependencies and the conflicts between the repositories or the libraries that you're using, and what are the key points like the pluses, the cons, pros and cons of using one or the other?
Yeah, very good question. So the question is comparing mono-repo and poly-repo and whether to use one or the other. What is better than the other? So I would say that my personal opinion is that I will go with a mono-repo, and having a mono-repo, it makes it easier in terms of managing the dependencies of your application without having much of problems. On the other side, however, there are certain cases or products or organizations for a number of reasons they want to go into a poly-repo. So in this case, of course, we need to have these kind of tools. But if I have to choose one or the other, I would go with a mono-repo. I think this makes it easier even on the CI level. So having a poly-repo makes it even harder on the CI. So mono-repo, it's somehow easier to manage it and run everything for your application, especially if you have also end-to-end tests. So you have your application and your application, one interconnects somehow with the other. You can open all of them together somehow and have a very complex workflow with your end-to-end tests as well. So yeah, I would go with a mono-repo. And the reason, so here is the question, and why do we need also to know this kind of tools? Why poly-repo then? Why Verdaccio? Give me a sec just to finish this one. So the reason is that we need to have in our tool set, if you like, we need to have in our tool set this kind of solutions of how to solve different problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very similar question, I guess, for someone from the chat that I will ask you. So whether you have in mind some good candidates, good project within which we should go with Verdaccio and Poly-repos.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, so whether you have in mind some good project candidates, or some good project examples where we should go with Verdaccio and Poly-repos.
Like an open source?
Yeah, that's the open question. What kind of the projects, or in which, in your opinion, we should go with this approach?
Okay, I see. So let's say I will share a personal experience. So the question is the following. So where can I use Verdaccio? Where can I use a poly-repo, right? So a personal experience is that I used to work in a company and they had something like an allergy in a mono-repo. They didn't want to listen to mono-repo. They wanted to have poly-repo. They were very strong into that one. And we wanted also to have the same UI library, the same UI components library, nothing to do with material, nothing to do with any other component library, a custom one. So we built our own custom library, UI library, and we wanted the same one to be used from different applications. So how can we achieve using this one? An option is, of course, to have to deploy it in a proxy. So this is one very good candidate for the UI libraries. So I think that's it. Thank you very much.